The lights in the auditorium were too bright, making the dust in the air shimmer like falling snow. My thighs stuck to the plastic seat as I waited for my name to be called. I had written out my graduation speech the night before, crossing out every sentence that might sound too eager or unsure. My palms shined with sweat, the paper trembling ever so slightly in my hands. Behind me, my mother whispered to my father, certain I couldn't hear. "He should have gone." I glanced up, confused. One of the older boys, a friend of my cousin's, whispered, "He's going to paint for his bread. Watch him starve." A wave of uneasy laughter swept over the crowd. Teachers stifled polite coughs. Some glanced away. My uncle rolled his eyes. My cheeks burned. The principal leaned over. "Wrap it up, Max, please. We're a little behind on time." His pinched smile didn't reach his eyes. I stuck the speech in my pocket, my heart thudding. "Thank you," I managed. Returning to my seat, every step felt like trudging through wet cement. As I sat, my mother touched my arm, forced out a brittle smile. "Not all dreams are for the stage, Max," she murmured. I couldn't meet her eyes. The ceremony ended quickly after that. My classmates milled around, drinking cheap sect and swapping jokes about university and travel. I stood by the door, tracing the rough paint on the wall with my fingernails. My cousin Lucas pushed past, his cologne and laughter filling the space. "You'll be back in a year," he said. "Don't worry, Berlin's always looking for waiters." I didn't reply. That night I sat in my room, staring at the city lights through the cracked window. I pulled out the speech and read it over and over, the words meaningless and heavy. The city's heartbeat pulsed under my nerves, sirens in the distance, the hum of trams, someone shouting in Turkish 3 floors down. That's when I decided I'd never belong at these tidy family dinners unless I gave up painting. But I couldn't do that. Not when colors came to me like breath. Not when my dreams flooded with images I felt I had no choice but to bring out. So I left. My first studio was a rotting attic in Wedding. The building stank of mold and cheap tobacco. And in winter, I painted beside a rusted electric heater that only glowed halfway to red. My savings shrank with every rent payment. My dinners grew increasingly meager. Day-old rolls, cheap cheese, apples bruised to brown. Some mornings I'd rummage for coins behind couch cushions just to get a pack of pencils. Every weekend there was a market in Mauer Park. I hauled canvases on the U-Bahn, elbows bruised by swinging bags, careful not to let the corners tear. My early paintings, a riot of color and aching uncertainty, lay scattered on folding tables nobody really stopped at. Shoppers eyed them, lingered until they noticed the prices, then moved on. Once, in the cold of November, an old man pulled me aside and said, "It's cute, boy, but art isn't for everyone. You have to know when to stop embarrassing yourself." Even my phone calls home grew fewer. My mother's calls turned to anxious, pointed questions. How much did I have in my bank account? Had I sent any applications for backup jobs? Uncle Dieter's voice would sometimes surface in the background. "He must be finished by now. You can't survive on hope." Sometimes I believed them. There were nights when I paced, fighting off the shadow that crept behind my eyes. The darkness whispered of failure, of coming home to that same table, of having squandered whatever faith my family had pretended to possess. The fear was constant. But I painted anyway. It wasn't luck. Not really. The gallery owner found me in the park out of sheer boredom, looking for something to distract a sulking girlfriend. He stopped at my stall, pointed to a half-finished piece of the city after rain, where light strikes the rooftops sharp and gold against the grit. "This is different," he said. His girlfriend shrugged, already checking her phone. He left his card anyway. That led, weeks later, after I'd nearly talked myself out of calling him a dozen times, to my first exhibition. It was hidden deep in Neukölln, where the walls sweated with condensation and cigarette smoke curtained the air. The vernissage was small, maybe 20 people, most of them friends of the owner. My paintings hung crookedly, lit by bare bulbs. My palms still sweated, but this time I forced myself to stand in the center, to meet people's eyes. 2 sold in the first hour. That night I lay in bed and stared at the ceiling. I was so exhausted I felt weightless, like floating in a warm bath. Nobody's voice, not my family's, not the market men, could reach me there. I slept for 12 hours straight. After that, things didn't change overnight, but doors opened. One painting led to another show, then to an art magazine interview, then a commission for a lobby mural in Kreuzberg. The anxiety never left completely, but I learned its contours, traced it into the lines of my drawings. The trembling hands. Shadows that flickered just outside a scene. 3 years passed. I worked every day, barely looking up. It was after a show at a prominent Berlin gallery where, for the first time, people I respected nodded to me as a peer, that the idea of going home even occurred to me. At first, I rejected it. To what end? Nobody there wanted to see the evidence. They'd never believed in art that didn't pay a rent or a mortgage outright. But a memory nagged at me on that auditorium stage, voice cracking. Their laughter crushing me like an avalanche of doubt. I wanted to stand there again, hands steady, voice clear, not for their approval, maybe not even for forgiveness, but to reclaim something I'd left behind. My mother's voice trembled when I called to say I was coming for her birthday. "Everyone will be there," she said. "Lucas, Uncle Dieter, maybe even the Schroeders from down the street. You know, they still ask about you." Her tone was guarded, a mixture of pride and nervousness. The day of the party, I arrived early, carrying something heavy beneath my arm, wrapped in brown paper. The weather was perfect, Berlin in deep spring, and the lilacs outside their building hummed with bees. I rang the bell. My father buzzed me in. Inside, the family apartment was exactly as I remembered. Fading carpets, cloying smell of coffee, voices echoing down the hallway. My mother swept me up into a quick embrace and immediately straightened my collar, as if adjusting a child. "You look tired," she whispered, searching my eyes. I shrugged, setting the package down in a corner. One by one, relatives filed in. Lucas, tall and broad-shouldered from years at the building site, grinned. "The artist returns," he called, clapping me on the back so hard I nearly dropped my drink. "So, which cafe are you waiting tables at now?" I caught his gaze, smiled thinly. "I'm not serving coffee anymore." "What then? Decided to teach kids how to draw pretty flowers?" Laughter erupted behind him. Uncle Dieter, hands on his belt, joined in. "Or maybe painting those government murals, eh? Those are always gray and hopeful." I kept my face calm, but my heart galloped. Fear, slender and slicing, reminded me of what it was like on that stage. Cut short, mocked. I took a slow breath. "Actually," I said, more evenly than I felt, "my work was recently acquired by the National Gallery." The room fell silent. Even my mother turned, eyebrows raised in surprise. Lucas scoffed. "Oh, come on. The National Gallery? That's for real artists." Uncle Dieter gave a dismissive wave. "Let's see it then, Max. Where are these masterpieces?" For the first time, I felt a kernel of defiance grow inside me, warmed by years of rejection and struggle. "Actually," I said, crossing to the corner, "I brought something. It's for Mama's birthday, but I think you might want to see it." I unwrapped the package, revealing a new canvas, the oils fresh with the shimmer of last week's varnish. The scene was unmistakably Berlin Alexanderplatz in the morning after rain. A thrum of color and shadow, the Fernsehturm slicing the sky. Crowds ghost-like and beautiful. I turned the painting so the whole room could see. The silence thickened. At first, nobody spoke. Then my mother drew in a sharp breath, stepping closer. She traced the surface carefully, her fingers trembling above the paint. "It's beautiful, Max, really." Lucas peered, skeptical. "But anyone can paint a city. What's so special about?" I reached into my jacket, took out a glossy program from the gallery. My photograph smiled back, blown up on the inside cover. Underneath, in bold, "Featured artist, Max Baum. National Gallery, Fruling exhibit." I handed the program first to my mother, then to Lucas, who read it twice before passing it to Dieter. A trace of satisfaction touched me, but it was layered now. Not so much gloating as relief, a soft easing in my chest. Here it was, concrete and undeniable, the proof their doubt could not erase. The room shifted. The voices softened. Questions changed their tone. Dieter cleared his throat, flipping through the program. "So they really paid you for this?" he asked, as if hoping there was some mistake. "A good sum?" There was a nervous joke in his voice, but it sounded off, watery. "Enough to pay my rent," I replied, my own voice steady. My mother sat, still holding the painting carefully on her knees. Her eyes glistened, and she pressed her lips together. "I used to worry every night," she whispered. "I was so afraid it would crush you. But you did it, Max. You really did."